Let me start by the first question. Can leadership be corrupted, Dato'? Or does it mean that bad people will turn to become bad leaders in a good system?
Well, okay, I was the chairman of the Audit Oversight Board set up by the Securities Commission. And Audit Oversight Board came into being globally because of this one company called Enron. Enron was a technology-based company. It was very successful. In fact, Enron was the company that introduced fair value accounting because they had so many assets, but they need to create value faster than what the physical asset could create. And I think the whole world now is on fair value accounting because of Enron. I had a chat with the CFO of Enron, Andrew Festo. I'm sure you know that he was jailed for his role because Enron eventually collapsed. Billions of dollars went into the drain. A lot of investors were burnt. And Andrew was the CFO of Enron. And I asked Andrew because everybody knew that, and the board of Enron were consisted of people who were very prominent. And I asked Andrew, so if you had so many personalities who was prominent, why did Enron happen as it did? And Andrew answered by saying that people will rationalize their conduct and behavior. This is one of the elements we talk about when we talk about fraud. Fraud, and the other element is rationalization. And when you rationalize, it can overcome any shortcomings. In your inability to have a sense that you are not on the right track, you are doing something that is wrong, you will rationalize why the wrongdoings are right for various reasons. So I suppose even in a good system, when people have power, there's not enough check and balances, then human being human, you may fail as well.
Ya, Dato', bercakap tentang donor agresif punya segitiga triangle, corruption triangle tadi, adakah kita boleh menggunakan corruption triangle tersebut sebagai asas di dalam kita membuat penyiasatan terhadap kes-kes yang diadukan terutamanya kepada universiti? Sebab ianya berkisarkan kepada dapatan-dapatan daripada kajian. That's why dikeluarkan teori oleh donor agresif tersebut. Mohon pandangan Datuk.
Bagi saya macam ni lah, saya rasa yang fraud triangle tu yang cerita tentang peluang ataupun opportunity, pressure, tekanan, rationalization, kita cuba mengiyakan apa yang kita buat. Saya rasa bagi saya ianya lebih sesuai untuk kita merangka kaedah-kaedah untuk menjadikan manusia lebih jujur dan mengadakan proses untuk rasanya kalau ikut pengalaman saya yang sedikit di Suruhanjaya Security, ianya berdasarkan bukti yang ada. Kan? Jadi I think for investigation you have to focus on the facts, and of course lah if you understand mana ada dia punya opportunity dan sebagainya, it helps you to but it's not the starting point lah. I don't think the fraud triangle the base of investigation. I would rather use that as a a frame untuk kita tengok mana risiko yang ada dalam organisasi kita, apa yang boleh kita perketatkan untuk mengurangkan peluang misalnya. So I would approach it in that manner lah. So to me it's more of a frame for you to understand where things can possibly go wrong, and if you want to use it for investigation, maybe just to, but not as a basis. I think investigation its own pasal investigation lah untuk cerita.
Thank you, Datuk.
Can we Datuk, can we give some ideas how best anti-corruption initiatives and programs could be further enhanced and improved for the enforcement agencies as well as the leadership of so many non-government organizations, NGOs, current crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic, where there are so many opportunities arising, budgetary allocation to such urgent and emergency portfolio, Datuk?
Well, as I mentioned, I think I always believe in the two elements, the person and the system. So inherently, you must put the right person in the right position. I think that it starts from there. Whether the person that you appoint to run the process has that or the right values in the person, so that he himself does not drive corrupt practices. I mean, that's one part. But again, you cannot rely on the person, because when you look at the fraud triangle, the person can be under pressure. There could be opportunities that is not controlled well. So you must have the system and process that basically helps to maintain an effective control to make sure assets are not abused, power are not abused. But you can have collusion across organizations, and I think this is also something which we need to be worried about, because it's not just that one person. Because when you look at the theory, you have the segregation of duties and all those things, is to basically to prevent assets from being abused, power from being abused, or corruption to happen. But if you have a more systemic collapse of values, when everybody in the system, then I think then you can have that failure. So about whether people can turn bad. I think we have to always assume that people will turn bad, and hence the system on its own should be robust enough. But there's no foolproof system. And when you talk about corruption, win crime, get the benefit, and the recipient also will get benefit. So it's a mutually consented crime. It's different from theft or robbery, or where one party will lose and the other party will gain, but it is a wrongful gain. Whereas corruption is where both agrees to commit crime, and because of that, they will consciously try to cover the tracks, and the way it is described, and I think this is the right way of describing corruption is, if you talk about a murder, when somebody died, immediately the family will notice that he has not came back. He's not come back to the house. He is missing. So immediately you lodge police report for it, and suddenly you realize that he was already murdered. Whereas corruption, the trail will be covered, because the intention not for the crime to be detected. And you only detect corruption normally over a period of time where it is not easy to track and detect the evidence. So these are things where corruption is different from other crimes because both sides of the parties who are involved benefit from the crime. So, a sensitive way of respond so that whatever evidence that you have, you can like any other economic layering, there's many parties are involved. Some are not even in your jurisdiction, so to get evidence may not be easy. And this is especially with technology. I think people can improvise the way you commit crime. So so again, it goes back to people and process, and you have to keep on looking for risk areas and try to plug the gap.
For your opinion, Malaysia corporate governance yang kita gunakan in Malaysia not applicable for civil government servant. So, how government servant to serve with a good governance, good code of corporate governance using our so-called that code also lah. So, in our government, we don't have any code. I think I don't find any code for stated as a corporate governance code for government servant. So, have you know about that, Datuk?
Dia gini lah. I think one of the problem in our society, we always outsource responsibility to other parties. Kita tak bertanggungjawab kepada diri kita, kita tunggu ada peraturan baru nak jadi baik. So to me, kita kena ingat the economy has developed even before this so-called Code of Corporate Governance were created. Code of Corporate Governance di Malaysia ni tahun 2000 je, maknanya baru dalam 20 tahun. Maknanya sebelum tu, kita masih ada ekonomi yang berkembang. Dan mungkin pada awalnya, masalah macam rasuah ni, tak seteruk apa yang ada sekarang. Maknanya apa yang membezakan antara dulu dan sekarang ialah nilai yang ada dalam diri kita. So if you have the right values, then you don't need system process apa to prevent things from happening. So I think that's one part of it lah. So I think it's how we are nurtured daripada kecil lagi in terms of bertanggungjawab pada diri kita. Dan I think maybe you can bahas buku Zakbar tentang perangai bergantung kepada diri sendiri. I think what will be very unfortunate is when we do not want to be responsible for ourselves. We say that until there is a rule or there is a protocol or whatever, then only I'll be good. Sepatutnya kita ni baik. Setiap masa, sama masa kita semayang pun, nanti kita try nak jadi khusyuk depan Tuhan. I think that should be something that we learn from, and then when we do our job, we should remember that job that kita buat is also part and parcel of ibadah. Tuhan masih berkati, malaikat masih mencatat. So what more as Muslim lah in particular, what more do you want than that? And as Muslim, kita percaya, kita believe that you will be standing in front of God and you will be accounted for whatever that you have done here in this world. And that one kita semua tahu kan, kita mengaku Islam, kita mengaku ada hari akhirat, ada syurga, neraka. So what more do you want than that? To be convinced that you should not do any evil. To me, we have that too. It's just that sebagai orang Islam, kita tak menggunakan pendekatan ni. Kita masih tunggu orang putih kata you must have this governor dan apa semua. Whereas I think if you talk about a Muslim-based organisation, I don't see why it's not being the approach while you still have the system and control lah, macam saya kata lah, I mean, you cannot neglect the system process. But the human part, we have a better tool than other people because we believe in akhirat. We believe that in akhirat ada dua tempat saja, syurga neraka. And then bila kita kena hisap dengan Tuhan, mulut kita yang petah bercakap ni, kita boleh menulis sekarang, kita boleh buat blog, kita boleh tuduh orang macam-macam tanpa kita menjelma, tapi di akhirat semua tu dah masuk dalam akaun, buka semua tengok dan kita tak dapat menafikan apa yang kita buat. To me, this is the tool. I don't need the corporate governance punya ni lah. Cuma corporate governance ni is a philosophical discussion about role, responsibility, system, process. And I think it's in line with Syariah. And I think it's okay. Tapi when we start to say that, oh, you know, we don't have this and therefore we are going to be bad, I think that's not right lah kan. Dan ini masalah bagi saya dalam institusi orang Melayu, orang Islam. Kita Islam kita tu hanya bila kita perlu. Bila kita perlu, kita cakap lah kita nak Islam apa. Bila kena kepada batang diri kita sendiri, bila kepentingan kita tak dapat ke terancam, then we as if there's nothing Islamic in that partners. So that's my view lah.
Do professional bodies has any roles in coming up with this culture of governance that you mentioned?
Well, I think professional bodies will always be aligned with global best practices. They will always talk about governance in the we can call it conventional way. But to me, when we talk about this issue in the Muslim society, in an Islamic society, why should we neglect the strengths that we have? And we use a process and a system where there is this separation between the person and the God. I think while we observe the framework of good governance in the conventional way, I think as Muslim we have our own toolkit which has been prescribed thousands of years ago, and that should be maknanya kita complement lah. In fact, ours should be the primary tool because and this was the one that was where the sahabat, the prophet, the sahabat were basically brought up to be conscious about that there will be a day where you get comfortable and you have to be prepared for that, and your preparation means that whatever that you do here will have consequences later, and that I think is a stronger approach, provided we believe it lah. If we don't believe it, we just talk about it, but then you have to rely on the so-called conventional way of looking at governance. I don't think as Islam first, then complementing that with the tool of the day, which will make it more stronger.
Datuk, saya insyaAllah.
Thank you very much, Datuk Nik. Your last say, Datuk, for everyone, especially in the areas of leadership and anti-corruption.
Saya rasa kalau last point ni balik pada kita kena ingatlah that kita akan bertemu dengan Tuhan dan kita akan ditanya apa yang kita buat sekarang ni. Jadi mungkin sekarang ni pangkat kita macam-macam, tapi Tuhan tak tengok pun benda tu, dia tengok apa yang kita buat. Jadi kita kena ingatlah ini satu perkara yang menakutkan seharusnya. Jangan rasa berani, kita boleh petah bercakap, kita boleh argue depan Tuhan. Dan satu lagi, saya tetap yakin universiti adalah satu institusi yang penting. Ianya melahirkan pemimpin-pemimpin masa depan. Mungkin pada awalnya kita tak nampak potensi mereka, jadi dia punya asas yang dia dapat masa dia masuk ke UMT tu. Apakah asas yang you tanam supaya bila dia keluar, walaupun mungkin pada masa dia graduate dekat undergraduate masih belum subur dan mekar lagi apa yang ditanam, tapi ianya akan menjadi sebuah pohon yang besar dan kukuh di masa depan. Jadi you have to ask yourself, what do you implant student so that they can grow, they can become successful and they can contribute back to nation building. So rasa setakat itu sajalah saudara Dr. Nizam.
Terima kasih banyak Datuk Nik Hasyudeen.